All right, we'll get going. Wanted to make sure we had everybody attending. We just broke over 100. Still, numbers are still climbing, so we'll let that continue. Get that up. Before we begin tonight's presentation, I just want to um, begin first by saying tonight's going to cover the student experience committee. It's going to talk about particularly the Office of Student Affairs, and Mr. Doyon will begin with that. But before we do begin, I just want to remind everyone, one, Magnus Health forms, if you haven't filled those out, please get those uh, done, get those submitted, review those online. I know it does send you reminders on a regular basis, but our health services team are reviewing those daily, and it's really important that we get those filled out and ready to go and on time for start of school. And then second to that, you should have all received yesterday a letter from our um, health services MDs, Dr. Michael Muchler, Cushing Medical Director, as well as Dr. Christina Hermos, who's part of our Bring the Penguins Home task force. She's a doctor of infectious disease and pediatric immunology at UMass Medical. That highlights, again, they talk about Magnus Health forms in there. They talk about the Penguin Promise, which we'll talk about later tonight in our presentation. They also talk about a form in Magnus Health that's a COVID-19 form for students, particularly boarding students who live at a distance, so they can leave campus for a period of time. And then in there also talks about 14 days prior to arrival, quarantine, as well as testing, what to expect on arrival, making sure you have masks, bringing 10 plus masks to campus, really critical information. So if you have not seen that letter, please go to your email. If you haven't seen it in your email, you can go to our reopening page on the Cushing website. But I strongly urge and ask that everyone review that letter, read it a couple of times so you see all of the details there. And of course, we'll be happy to have our health services team answer any questions you may have to clarify on that. I will say, some folks have asked questions about quarantine, and our physicians have been pretty conservative there to preserve the health and safety of our community. So um, just a heads up on that as you do ask those questions, and you can anticipate the mood of their response. But before we also get going, every time we do one of these webinars, I like to give a report sort of on the pandemic, particularly in Massachusetts, and some stats. Looking at our test average has gone up a little bit to the levels of early June, but still hovering around that 2%. Looks like plateaued and then hopefully on a downward trend again, but number of patients in hospitals continues to decline significantly. Surge capacity up and down, and deaths really continues to decline as well. So stable, good news. I know, some trends up, some trends down, and we definitely keep a close eye on that with our health team, with our physicians, and with our medical experts. And certainly we'll keep you posted if that impacts any of our decisions. As I said to our employees the other day, this is always changing. It's full of uncertainty, ambiguity, and needs to shift and pivot and change our strategies up to, of course, ensure the health and safety of our community, to be able to open if advised to do so by our experts, and also to stay open. And all of those strategies are what we've been working towards in the Bring the Penguin Home Task Force, as well as the letter that you received from the medical team highlights a lot of those things as well, which I spoke about at the beginning of the presentation, with center around mitigation strategies, testing, screening, and quarantine. And if you do have questions, I can answer those at the end to the best of my ability, and we'll also pass those along. But really want to introduce Mr. Josh Doyon. Many of you know him, new students. He's our Director of Student Affairs. And Josh, I'll let you take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Burton. Just like to welcome everyone tonight. I know it's been a long summer, and I know you've endured a lot of webinars over the course of the summer. So we'd just like to thank you again for joining us as we are planning for the start of school, and welcoming back our returning students, and and also welcoming our new students to Cushing. It's hard to believe that we're 2 weeks away from students arriving to campus, and while we are all very excited, we also just thank your patience and just really helping understand our process and giving us great feedback. Really, kind of the overview that we like to do tonight. Last week from our student experience subgroup, you heard a little bit more about our academic approach, and you learn more about our afternoon activity approach, if we need to shift and pivot into some of those ways. And tonight, really, the overview that we're going to really provide is to talk a little bit more about Waddles, and kind of to give you a sense of what Waddle life may look like. We're actually going to be joined a little bit later by one of our co-student body presidents, Riley Carr, and we're going to be going over the Penguin Promise. And at the end of the night, we're also going to be speaking about the Aux app, which we're going to be asking all of our community members, to be downloading onto their phones and to ultimately be submitting. It's basically a symptom checker, that we're going to ask you to do every day. And just one, point of clarification. Some of you may be wondering, while we had planned for the Aux app to go out today, I'm sure many on the East Coast have been impacted by, some of the recent hurricanes and some of the recent power outages, and Aux was also impacted. And so it actually put their timeline behind just a little bit, but it's their hope that they're going to be sending that email out to students' Gmail accounts, and we'll be talking a little bit about that towards the end of the presentation. But students have not missed anything, and they should be watching their Gmail accounts tomorrow, where hopefully that will be arriving sometime soon. And so really, just as we're moving forward here and as we're thinking, we're just really thinking about our guiding principles and priorities. And really, this has kind of been really the focusing point of our student experience task force for over the whole summer. And we're really thinking about Cushing's focus on the health and well-being for all our community members. We're trying to think about ways and to strategize how we can ultimately limit the Cushing's community's exposure to COVID-19. And we also are recognizing that every member of the Cushing community will have to adjust in some way, some shape, and some form, as we have seen this public health situation change. And as we've seen this public health situation change, I think we have a very strong foundation, and we're able to really make those pivots to adapt. I think that has been one of the most consistent things in this uncertainty over the summer, is the need to change, and the need to also be flexible. And we're realizing as we approach the school year, that those two principles were also going to remain true. And we just hope, that all of this hard work and all of this planning is really going to come really to light in 2 weeks. So the first idea, just to kind of talk about tonight, is just that idea of Waddles. And so as we've been talking about Waddles over the course of the summer, this idea of waddling is really to really just make cohorts for our students. And so as we're thinking about Waddles here, our Waddles, the whole purpose of our Waddles is to really think about the times when our students are going to be what is kind of deemed the riskiest behavior. And that riskiest behavior is what we have come to understand as when students are not wearing their face coverings. And that is typically for eating, and that is typically for sleeping. And so really working with our admission office and the rest of our student experience task force, we have designed and created over 20 Waddles or student cohorts that are going to provide opportunities for our students to eat, live, and have some degree of interaction with each other. To kind of get a sense of what our Waddle is going to look like in terms of size, the average is going to be about 14 students. Our largest Waddles are going to be about 16, 17, and those are really going to be up in Lee and Sanborn. Those are some of the spaces that are on our campus that have the most ability for all of our students to live together. And so obviously those are going to be our largest Waddles. And those Waddles sizes too are going to expand slightly because faculty members are also going to be waddled. And what we mean by faculty members being waddled is that this will also create opportunities for our faculty to interact with our students outside of class, in the dining hall, or even in the dorm setting, as they have in the past. and so, right, as you know, one of those places where it's the eating and the personal care where we really see the riskiest behavior. It's also, you know, it's also in the dorm, and it's also sleeping. And so one of the ideas that we were really working on this year is, you know, as you know, some of the recommendations that our health team and our health task force was giving to us is that if students were to have roommates, you know, that while those students are waddled, it does not necessarily mean that those students are, from what our understanding is, you know, are not limiting their ability to pass any sort of infection, right? You know, whenever we have, you know, students or people living in close proximity, we just have to be mindful just about many just factors. And so sleeping was going to become one of those times where, or sleeping does become one of those times where students may have a little bit more relaxed, and you know, and would be able to remove their masks. And so one of the other decisions that we've made working with our admission office and working with our student experience task force, is we have the unique opportunity right now is to give every student on campus a single. And we feel that giving every student on our campus a single is really going to, first, it's going to create a mask break. So when students are actually able to go into their room, they are going to be able to take off their mask, and they're going to be able to have that nice mask break. And they would not have to be wearing a mask if someone was in the room. And the other thing that we feel that providing all of our students with a single is going to be doing as well, is just going to just kind of create this natural separation that is just going to really protect all of our members of our community. And it's just going to really lessen any spread of any common colds, any stomach bugs, or anything else that may ultimately exist. So, right, that is some of our approach and some of our thinking there, and how we've gone through to construct our waddles is we had really started to take into consideration, you know, how we build a boarding community, or just how we build an overall Cushing community. And when we were thinking about our waddles, one of the things that we had first really looked at was our student leader and our proctor placement. And we also had gained a lot of information from our returning students about those whom they wanted to live with and those whom they wanted to live around. And we were also able to use things like roommate questionnaires that our new students completed. And also we were able to look at grades and to think about where students are going to be having natural crossover in terms of identified afternoon activities, identified interest, and just identified you know, wants, likes, or needs from the community. And so with all that information, this is how we have really constructed our waddles, is that we have really tried to think about, you know, balancing all of those, you know, different priorities. You know, we still want to provide our students with a chance to live with, you know, near peers with like interest, and while at the same time provide them with an opportunity to meet some of the newest members or returning members of our community. So we're trying to, you know, keep our experience whole there as much as we can. You know, and it's, you know, it's something that we know that there's going to be a change. But you know, but we are hopeful that some of these changes and some of our thinking will really have some large benefits as we move forward. And just before we move on, right, just a couple of you know, different ideas I would like to share with you too, is while every school is, you know, kind of defining their own waddle or their own cohort, one of the things that I just like to note here, it's important that our students are not waddled into every activity, into every class, and into every advisory. You know, while again, right, we're really thinking about this idea of our riskiest time is when students are not wearing face coverings or, you know, or sleeping. We, you know, we wanted to maintain the integrity of our program as much as we can, and also the ability to create personalized schedules for our students. I think that's really been one of the hallmarks here at Cushing, is that our students are able to come in and they do not have a set schedule based on grade, but it's rather, you know, our student schedules and our offerings are really meeting students based on where they are and based on what they need. And so my point is that our waddles are not going to be all freshmen are going to be in the same class, all freshmen are going to have the same advisor, all freshmen are going to be living in the same space. But rather we will have students who will be interacting throughout the course of the day, whether that be in an afternoon activity, whether that be in a classroom, or whether that be in an advisory. So students outside Waddles will have opportunities to meet, but they will be asked to ultimately, maintain physical distancing, and ensure that their face coverings are on and proper. Again, to just make sure that we're not, participating in any what we're going to deem risky behavior. And I'm speaking with a sense of optimism too, and I know this and I realize this. And so, one of the things that I think has just really come true over the course of the summer is at the beginning of every school year, we're always challenged to create a new school community, right? We always have to figure out ways to blend our new students, our returning students, our new faculty members, our returning faculty members, right? We always have to figure out a way, how do we blend this whole entire community together, right? No matter the year, this is always one of our challenges. Um, you know, and so the goal this year is to continue to foster this community that really aims to develop creative, confident learners and leaders, right? And this year that challenge is going to be even more amplified. Where we are aware of this, and we really feel, and I think this is where like my optimism really lies, is that we just really feel that this year is such a great opportunity for student leadership. We feel that this is going to be such a great opportunity for student growth, and also, a great opportunity for student discovery. While what we have done in the past, we will be able to continue in some ways. We are going to have to be more creative. We are going to have to make some changes, and but we're always going to be leading with what is most important for the community, and how do we make sure that we are making the most out of this experience. And we know that this year is going to have different demands. We know that this year is going to have different expectations. But I have a lot of confidence that our community members are ready to embrace this challenge, and they're going to continue to find ways to make this community and to make Cushing such a special place. And so at this point, I'd like to invite Riley Carr, to us. Riley is one of our co-student body presidents. And Riley is going to be really speaking a little bit more about this idea of the Penguin Promise, which will be really one of our guiding principles for the course of this school year. Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Doyon. So the Penguin Promise is a commitment for not only our personal health, but for the safety of the entire Cushing community. It's important that we're all aware of the Penguin Promise because, as cheesy as it may sound, while meeting this promise, we become stronger together. Now, more than ever, it's crucial that we work together and we all commit to maintaining the health and well-being of the Academy. As members of the Cushing community, we each have a communal responsibility as we continue to navigate these challenging, unparalleled, and even frustrating times. It's important we stay focused on the health and well-being of our community. We must work actively to be positive, attentive, and understanding of the people around us. This is a promise that is asking us to act with integrity and follow health and safety protocols, whether on or off campus. What this means is following different traffic patterns to class, working to keep your room and common spaces clean and sanitized, self-monitoring symptoms consistent with COVID-19, thoroughly washing your hands, especially after the restroom and before meals, and adhering to all expectations from the Academy. Being able to take these steps together will make our community stronger in the end. In addition to taking care of ourselves, we also need to protect those who are most vulnerable. Social distancing, wearing face coverings in public spaces, and other protocols that are being implemented will be key pieces to this promise. This also means staying home or in your room if you feel ill or if you've been exposed to someone who is COVID positive. Lastly, by doing our part, asking an advisor, teacher, or coach for clarification if you don't understand the steps you need to take for the health and well-being of our campus. Each of us is an important part of the Cushing community, and collectively, we are stronger when we hold ourselves accountable by acting with personal and social responsibility. At the end of the day, all of this is really so we can bring our COVID cases on campus down to zero and be able to have a fun, exciting year and be able to see each other's faces and make this an overall great year and great experience for everyone. And it's a really small price to pay for the experience that we're gaining. So we really appreciate your guys' cooperation and taking the time to listen to all of our protocols. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Riley. And just, as you can see, what is hopefully you can hear me a little bit better. I apologize if my audio wasn't good a little earlier. But hopefully what you can just really see in front of you on the screen is just the, some of those guiding principles of that Penguin Promise. And for our students, if you have not reviewed this yet, there was actually an email that was sent out yesterday as a part of the medical letter that Dr. Burton referred to a little bit earlier today. And so we'd ask all of our students to review that Penguin Promise. And you will see that there is a little link there. And we'd ask that you, take some time to review that promise and to sign that link, via your Cushing email account. And if you're having any trouble finding it, or if you have any questions about it, please reach out, because while we want to make this a living document, it's also going to be one of those essential documents that is really going to be guiding a lot of our work this year. And to really think about how we can, as we have discussed over the course of the summer, make some short-term decisions for some long-term success. So if you have questions, if there's something that you don't understand, we are hopeful that you will reach out to an advisor, to myself, to Dr. Burton, or to anyone else in the community, to make sure that you have a little bit more understanding about that. Great, thank you. And just the last piece we just wanted to just really touch upon tonight is, as we're just really thinking about some of these new health and safety protocols that we're going to be having on campus, and some of the changes that we're going to be ultimately having for the upcoming year. We also just want to, just briefly touch upon this idea of the AUX app. And, really we'll be asking all members of our Cushing community to download the AUX Safety app. Many of us adults have been using this for 2 to 3 days now. And so we are starting to develop some good habits and starting to develop some good routines there. But really the whole purpose of the app, is a way for us to just do some daily symptom questionnaire to make sure that we're self-monitoring our symptoms, and we're also thinking about the overall health and safety of our overall community. So when you receive the email tomorrow, we have discovered that it's best. So it's going to go first to a student's Gmail account. It's not going to go to any parent's account. So our returning students should already have their logins and should already be able to access their email. It might be the first time that you've logged into your email account all summer, but this might be one of the most important emails that you do find. And for many of our new students, you should have received your email or Gmail credentials a little bit earlier in the summer. And if you're having trouble finding those, please reach out to our tech office, which can be reached at tech@cushing.org. Or you can reach out to Student Affairs, which is studentaffairs@cushing.org. And we'll be sure to help you to make sure that you have those login credentials. And we've also have really discovered when you're able to log into your Cushing Gmail account, that it really makes sense to really open this app and really get into this app through your mobile device. Because it's going to be something that is going to be loaded or downloaded right onto that mobile device. And there's some pretty clear directions if you are able to use your cell phone, iPhone, Android, Samsung, whatever your phone of choice is. And so, the whole reason why that we just like to kind of talk about this is one of the recommendations from our medical team is just really the importance of being able to track daily symptoms to really identify community members who are not feeling well and should remain in their room, or for other community members who may have COVID-like symptoms. And we know that the common cold presents like COVID, and we know that not everyone who is sick, will ultimately go to COVID positive. But we also just want to make sure too that, people are just monitoring their symptoms, thinking about their symptoms, and, are really thinking about, if you are not feeling well, to not really enter the, general Cushing community. So after that after that app is sent to you, or after that email is sent to you and you're able to download the app, what you're going to see there is every day for the next about 14 or 15 days, we're going to ask you once a day to complete the app. And there's a series of yes and no questions there. And there's also just some questions about what starts to become known as a little contact tracing. But really, it's pretty quick. It's pretty simple. And what you're seeing on the screen right now is those are some just general guidance. I've been, test piling it here at our school, and I will say it works. If you look at the second if you look at the second text message on the bottom, this is mostly for if you are identifying symptoms or if you're identifying a very high fever. And so you will get instant feedback as soon as you send your symptoms in about those health and safety protocols. And you will get actually on screen or in your text message information about steps to take next. So if you have no symptoms, you will receive that basically that text message that you see in the upper left, where you're good to go, wear a mask, wash your hands, and stay 6 feet apart. And you'll see on the bottom right, if you are experiencing symptoms, our students will not be contacted by human resources. This is more for our adults, but just to kind of get you a sense of some of the messages that you will be seeing. Once students are actually on campus, the other piece that we are going to do is that we are going to increase just when they are entering those daily symptoms to twice a day. So when students are on campus, they should expect to complete this daily symptom questionnaire once in the morning and once right around the beginning of study hall. And again, right, we're looking at about a 12-hour window where we know that symptoms can change. We know that just general health can change, and we're really trying to find some really good intervention points. How we can ensure that we are just thinking about the health and well-being of our overall community. And our day students are also going to be asked to do this as well. And so, if our day students, right, a lot of this is going to be habit forming for all the members of our community, because, this is a new routine. This is something new. This is a new expectation. But really where we're aiming to go with this is once we're in a place where we're starting to understand the symptoms, is to, really make sure that we're making good decisions. So for our day students, when they come to campus, they will be asked to follow the same protocols, and they will be asked to do a temperature check, when they come to campus, and our boarding students will be asked to do a temperature check in their dorm before they're able to leave their dorm to go out to the dining hall or to go to classes. And the last image to kind of think about is how we're also going to really follow up, to make sure that everyone is, a big word we've used this summer is compliance, and we know some students will ultimately forget to take their will ultimately forget, and even staff members are ultimately going to forget to complete the self check every day. But there's also a boarding pass feature. And so this boarding pass feature, in addition to getting these text messages that you see in front of you, you'll also get a email as soon as you complete the symptom checker right into a student's account. And we're also going to use this, again, this is something that I did earlier today, but green is go, right? If it's red, it means stop. But this is just another just kind of check and balance for our students and for that first teacher, which might be just one of those communications that we're making sure that temperatures have been taken, that we make sure that people have self-monitored their symptoms, and that they have been, cleared and okay to really enter the community for that day. And again, right, one thing to keep in mind with this Aux Safety app is that this, while it does allow for some contact tracing, and once you're able to get into it tomorrow, you'll understand what that means a little bit more. One of the questions there is to really identify 4 people that you might have been a little close to, may have had your mask off around, and could have created what we call potential spread. But one thing to keep in mind is that this app is not, it's more a passive contact tracer where it's providing us information, where if we need to start to examine, who a student has been around a little bit more, we will have that information. But this does not have GPS capabilities. This app is not speaking to other people's phones. And there's some other, just some other devices out there that are even sending signals to each other's phones and sending alerts when you may get a little too close. So this we feel really falls in line with those ideas of the Penguin Promise, and those ideas of students really, taking those necessary steps, to make sure that they are doing what's best for themselves in our community, but also thinking about protecting, other members of our community as well. So, we would ask when you get that email over the course of the weekend that you do take a moment to download it. And again, really just make sure that you are exploring it. Also really making sure that you are just really understanding what that app is about. I will say, if you want to see what the response will be, and if you start to say you do have a lot of symptoms, you should expect someone from our health center to follow up with you. Just that, that is something to keep in mind, is that, there is a certain level, people are looking at this app, people are checking this app. And so, just be mindful of that as you are, using it for the first time and starting to experience it for the first time as well, right? We know that there are going to be mistakes made. And I think as we start to think about the next 14 days, it's really a time to, start to understand these new protocols, start to understand these new expectations, but also, become just more comfortable with some of this, technology and that we are going to be using. So that's, all that for tonight that we really have to share. And so I think at this point, I will turn it back over to Dr. Burton. Randy? Oh, you're muted, Randy.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for your presentation. We also have Mr. Bala joining us tonight as well. And Riley, if you're still there, I think you can drop off at this point. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
For joining us tonight. We will open it up to Q&A, and as always, we'll try to keep it to an hour total, so about a 20-minute session or so for question and answers. And I see a couple there, so I will ask. Josh, first one is about laundry. What will students be using for laundry? Will there be protocols in place?
Yes, that's a great question. We will be having protocols in place this year. One of the pieces, and I kind of referenced this a little bit earlier, we have had to really reinvent almost everything that we do this year. And so everything that we have done and any of those foundations that we've had in the past, we've really had to examine everything. And so one of the pieces has come up in terms of laundry. And so really what we're going to be doing with our laundry this year is that we know some students will ultimately choose ENR, which is an off-campus laundry service. But for those students who do not choose to use ENR, we will still be using our laundry machines and working with our operations task force, working with our health and safety task force. We have really come to understand that the temperature of the water is one that is very high, and it is one that will really eliminate any sort of disease or any sort of virus, right? So to really get to the point, our students will be scheduled to use the laundry machine. And so we're really going to make sure that we are, having dedicated times for our students, to use our laundry services. We also know too, right, because we have the ability this year to also provide everyone with a single, that there are going to be potentially multiple time windows for students to do laundry over the course of the, just over the course of the week. And, some of this too, may be occurring at night. Some of this may be occurring during the day. And this is really going to be a schedule that is designed by dorm, really personalized for student schedules, and just kind of what happens every day. Also too, to get a sense, all of our laundry machines are free for use. So you do not have to bring quarters, you do not have to bring coins, you don't have to worry about anything of that nature. And last year we actually as well implemented a system which you'll be able to access through My Cushing's resource page called Laundry Connect, which in terms of that scheduling will also give students a sense of when machines are open, and and also if they do have something in the machine, how much time left before the cycle is over.
Great, thank you. Lots of questions, Josh, about when we'll know where we're living and who is in our waddles.
Yes. That's such a great question. And we are finalizing this as much as we can and hope to get this information out. In a typical year, right, students find out who is their roommates and where they're living on their day that they come to campus. And so we're just refining that process a little bit, and also thinking about the best way to communicate all this information out as well, right? We know we've been sending a lot of communication. We also want to make sure that this is not missed. So once things are 100% final in terms of waddle sizes, just in terms of all of the living spaces, this is information that will ultimately be loaded into My Cushing, and then we will be reaching out to raise awareness to that as well.
Great. Thank you. And just to clarify, will proctors have, or student leaders have roommates?
At this point, we're in a position, that no one has a roommate as of today. Again, right, we're just really doing this for the health and well-being of the community. And as the public health situation may or may not change, and based off recommendations off our medical team, that's something that can ultimately be reconsidered. But we feel at this point, starting at the beginning, I think that this is something we feel that is really for our long-term success.
Great, thank you. Raja, question for you about remote classes. What do we need to download, or what materials do we need to prepare, and will that be forthcoming?
The specifics will definitely continue to come out over the next week to 10 days, but for returning families, the hub you'll recognize will exist on My Cushing, and as new students begin to acclimate themselves on My Cushing as well, that will continue to be the sort of warehouse for classes and all resources that students will need to be able to participate remotely.
Great, thank you very much. Josh, question for you. Does Cushing relate information to dorm room movers? So things will be in a student's room when they arrive.
Oh, yes. Yeah, exactly. So for those students who use dorm room movers, who are able to return this fall, you will discover that is one of the benefits of using dorm room movers. So you will discover that your items are in your room. And so dorm room movers will be on campus. Sorry, all the weeks are kind of blending together. Sometime at the end of next week. And then we will also be following up in terms of sanitizing all the dorm spaces as well. So in case that's a question. And if we do have any students tonight who will not be able to return to campus in the fall, but plan to return to campus when they are able, we will be, and who use dorm room movers, we will be collecting that, or we will be collecting your belongings, and we're going to be storing those in a safe place on our campus. So when you are able to return, we will have those on site, and we will be also able to deliver those to your room.
Great. Josh, how about delivery? DoorDash, Grubhub?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we also understand the culture of our community at times. And this is one of the places where we're at least at the beginning of the year, we're going to have to pivot, and we're going to have to make a cultural shift, unfortunately. And we're going to ask that our students really lessen or limit Grubhub. They really limit acts or deliveries from Yakisawa, from Brothers and Village, and just some of the other local vendors. Until a time that we feel, probably after that 2-week testing point, that we feel that we are in a spot to start to really allow, outside vendors to get a little bit more access to our campus. But I can say in our student experience group, we are working more with Brock to think about ways to, think about grab and go options, and also to think about ways to make sure dorm snacks or dorm drops are also being, really starting to meet some of those requirements as well. I'll share the last piece. We've also added more refrigerators to our common spaces. So as we're thinking about those ideas of waddles, each waddle will now have a refrigerator and now have a microwave. And so we always know that snacking, noodles, mac and cheese, popcorn have always been, great staples. We also know that that might lead to some more fire alarms, but it's a balance that we're just going to have to make. There will be plenty of opportunities just at night, to start to really start to continue those, snacking opportunities.
Great. So, and that includes Brothers Village, right? No delivery for the first few weeks. That limit will hopefully occur then. And then maybe as time goes on, due to public health and everything else, we'll be able to ease up on that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take this one. Are you allowed to use daily disposable masks? So our medical team is asking that you bring 10 or more masks that are 2 to 3 layers of woven fabric, tightly woven fabric, and that we avoid disposables so that they can be washed, reused, and that you have plenty. So 10 plus 2 to 3 layers of tightly woven fabric is their request and requirement. Update on sports. No update, unfortunately, on sports. I was on a call yesterday with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education with Secretary Spire in Massachusetts. They said information on sports would be forthcoming. So, certainly you've got the email about the Evergreen League and football and how that is not occurring in terms of traveling across 5 states. And that doesn't mean that sport will not be allowed to happen. It just means that the league is not supporting league play because it's over such a diverse geographical area with different rules and infection rates and things like that. In terms of Massachusetts, we're still waiting on that guidance, and do not have that yet. Let's see, other questions. Question about the rink. Is the rink open? So the rink is closed to outside groups, but has ice on it, has had ice on it, and is eagerly awaiting the arrival of our students back to campus and will be available for their use. Question about 3-day quarantine, work before classes start in terms of eating, leaving our rooms. That time period, a few questions about that.
Yeah, that is, it's going to be an interesting time period. And this is one of the, so I guess I'll start first. Students will have food delivered to them. And so we are working with Brock. Brock is really developing a system to really think about providing different meal choices to our students. And so really what that system would be, is most likely going to be a Google form or something that's housed in My Cushing, where students will have different selections for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so we have really developed, a way to deliver hot meals to the dorms, to make sure that students are able to eat, are able to have good nutritious food, and are able to just kind of continue that continuity of food in that way. And that was also some of the snacks I mentioned earlier. We're also looking to introduce snacks at some of those various points as well. And we're also trying to really think about how we can do some community building during that quarantine period, while also providing outdoor time for our students. We do feel that if students will most likely be scheduled, to go outside, at various points of the day, to make sure that, we are thinking about the health and, well-being of those students, but they will be asked to be masked and just to practice that physical distancing as needed.
Great. Raja, a question, I think maybe a little confusion. What percentage of classes will be online? So maybe talk about how that hybrid works. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I just hit reply on answering that one.
Oh, you did? Okay. My
But
apologies.
but I'm happy to clarify as well. So every class utilizing the technology that we are that we've researched and are incorporating into our teaching will be accessible for any student not on campus. However, any student that is on campus will be able to attend all of those classes live or synchronously. So it's not really sort of one or the other. That said, there will be essentially one class out of a weekly or two-week rotation that is by design asynchronous. And so students will have the opportunity to participate in those classes either during study hall or during free periods. And that was very intentional in terms of just understanding the efficacy of asynchronous learning and the ways in which that we can improve our overall learning outcomes. But for any student on campus, every class will be live.
Great. Thank you, Raja. Will masks be available for sale on campus? Yes, they will. And we will also provide 2 masks to each student on registration day. And in case more are needed beyond the 10, parentheses, teenage boys there. Yes, they will be available for sale on campus. You can bring more than 10, certainly, and you will get those 2 on registration day. So, yes, absolutely. Let me just make sure I go through.
Randy, I see a question there about Mountain Day, and that is one of our really important traditions. I'm finishing my 4th year at Cushing. I know Raja, I think, is wrapping up his 14th year at Cushing. And this is one of these traditions that, sorry?
Thanks, Josh.
And this is really one of these traditions that we've been really committed to. I think about, back to a few years ago where we probably scheduled 2 or 3 mountain days that were always just rained out. It's most likely we're not going to be doing Mountain Day in the fall because we would really prefer to try to do this as much as we can with our entire community and not portions of our community. But at the same time, I'm working closely with Donnie Connors. We're working closely with Mount Monadnock, and also thinking about when we can do this, how we can do this. And also, the crystal ball isn't very clear right now. And so we're also hoping that we'll have the ability to do this in the fall, next spring. And if we do not, we will figure out a creative way, to provide a Mountain Day experience, however we can.
Great. No, thank you. I saw that. Will masks that have a single sport logo be allowed to be worn, something like Adidas or Under Armour? So we have to draw the line here because I think it becomes gray pretty quickly. So masks, unless issued by Cushing, cannot have any writing, logos, just be cloth, colored, patterned. Other than that, not allowed. Make sure I don't see any other questions, which I think is a good sign. Question about testing. Is it possible to get a test if you're in the Boston area? Certainly, if you're within vicinity of Haywood Hospital, Haywood provides free community testing that anyone can make an appointment and go do, and you can bring that result to campus. The test that's needed is a pretest between the August 6th to 15th time period, so that could be done if you're willing to drive out here. I know CVS locations are doing them. There's also a Massachusetts state program on mass.gov that's called Stop the Spread that has several testing locations. So certainly you can use those resources, communicate with us if you're having difficulties, and we'll try to connect you with any others as well that we hear about. Josh, are they allowed to receive packages?
Yes, packages and mail have still been running. And yes, so students will be able to do that, and we've created a contactless way when UPS, FedEx, DHL come to campus. Again, to really think about how to stop that spread, how to protect our community. Students will notice that campus is different when they do arrive to campus. We are working for ways to make sure that students have access to the mail room, students have access to packages, and that's another great opportunity for our students to think about snacks, or I think about something like Amazon Subscribe and Save, where it's just every month you get a little package of like Doritos or whatever you put into your kind of sorry, I'm losing my words. Box.
Dorito. I want that package. All right. Can we clarify, Raja? Question for you. And just a reminder, you're on mute. Can you clarify the term asynchronous learning and how that fits into the daily schedule? Sounds like learning outside of class. Sorry if I missed that somewhere else.
Oh, that's a good contextual deduction of what it means. So an asynchronous class is a class that is exactly that is designed to meet outside of the traditional academic day. And so last spring, when we made the transition to remote learning, we had roughly 2 out of every 3 class meetings that were synchronous, where students were all participating at the same moment in time. And then again, by design, we had a third meeting that was asynchronous. And so asynchronous classes are structured differently by the teacher, and students have the ability to follow that plan, do that learning, whatever it looks like. It could be a virtual lab or a series of just different prompts through whatever the lesson or the material is. And they have the ability to do that on their own time between when it's assigned and when the next class meets. And so what I was referencing in terms of our revised daily academic schedule, we are still preserving an element of that asynchronous learning that will happen as just ways of, again, increasing learning time, and then also ways to just continue to tap into the opportunities that asynchronous learning presents, and really think about that as supplemental to the classes that are happening between 8:30 and 3:30 every day.
Okay, great. So just a clarification, because I think maybe some confusion. It's not in lieu of daytime classes, but it could be during a study hall. You might need to pop on an asynchronous class, or have an asynchronous class at the end of the day, something like that.
Right, on top of. So for those that have this familiarity, the double letter classes will be meeting 3 times synchronously each week, and then they'll have a 4th asynchronous meeting time, and then all the single letter classes will meet 8 times over the course of 2 weeks, and then they'll have a 9th asynchronous meeting. So again, the asynchronous time is completely an add-on on top of that. Will supplement whatever the learning outcomes are for that week. Just a way of being able to do more, go deeper, and enhance the things that are happening on a daily basis in the classroom.
A couple of repeat questions popped up that I'll just answer quickly because we're running out of time. Can boxes be shipped to campus? Yes, that's a yes. Will the student, which is Cushing lingo, the stud, which is the student activities area under the dining hall, be open, and nights like turf night take place? Certainly we're going to ramp up with activities as much as possible, and be able to do activities on campus at first that are implementing strict viral mitigation and physical distancing, mask wearing, and then hopefully over time be able to normalize more and more, depending on how things go with the public health situation. And that could change one way or another as time goes on. And last one, and I know we answered it, Josh, campus quarantine, how kids will get their meals during that quiet period of the first couple days while we're waiting.
Yeah, they're going to be delivered to rooms. We're coming up with a process to make sure that not every student is just getting one meal, one choice of a meal, but there will be multiple choices. We're thinking about food portions, and we're just thinking to just how to make that transition into campus as as good as possible.
Great. Thank you. Raj, a question for you. How are we able to take music lessons that require rehearsal if we cannot be in school? So I think this is a remote person.
So Mr. Hindle and Mr. Sabatini have been working and researching ways to improve the experience that we were able to provide in the spring. And while there are some certain health considerations that have to be taken into account, we are still planning on providing all of those options, chorus and jazz ensemble specifically, but we are forging ahead and doing our best to create as full and complete an experience as possible. Again, trying to merge the experience for those students that are on campus with those that are not. And the same is true for all of our visual arts as well.
Great. And how about music in person in terms of band things or performance?
So that again will be dependent upon what we're allowed to do, what spaces that we are available. Whenever possible, outside venues are going to provide us the most immediate access to performances. But again, that's obviously sort of the staple and desired outcome of putting in all of that hard work on a daily basis to be able to perform. And so whether it's through our electronic and technological resources, or to the extent that it's possible to provide those opportunities in whatever capacity that we can on campus, we are committed to recognize the importance of being able to provide those opportunities.
Great. I'll take this one. Will everyone on campus be using the Aux app on daily temperatures, even those that don't live here, families, etc.? What our medical team has recommended is that all employees and all students will be using the Aux app daily. Looks like, a couple thank yous. That's it. I don't think we've ever gotten to the end before. Josh, Xbox.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's Xbox, PlayStation. I think the big question there is that those things are allowed in rooms, and I think that has to ultimately be a family decision in terms of balancing that academics, but also balancing that free time or downtime. We also know like things like Xbox Live, PlayStation Live are also just great ways to build community in itself. And we also will have the gaming lounge open, but again, right, that will be at a limited capacity this year. So if you are able to bring your Xbox and feel it won't be a distraction, please do.
And nobody in your room, right? Two people in one room can't play it at one time.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Right. Unless they're 6 feet apart, wear a mask.
Right. In the same waddle.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Really appreciate your time and all of your questions. And, I know as we continue to say, certainly we are not always able to answer questions exactly with information maybe that you're looking for, but we're giving it with the best information that we have at the time, and that can change and probably will change as we go throughout the course of the semester. But again, ask for your patience, your flexibility, and your understanding as we work to continue to bring those Penguins home and keep them here over the course of the fall semester. So thank you to Mr. Doyon, Mr. Bala, and to all of our attendees, and I hope you have all a good night. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.